complete guide for Surf Kitsune. You're probably struggling on stage 9, it's by far the longest, but if not, I've got every stage covered with timestamps. However, each one has a technique you need to beat stage 9. When we get there, we're going to use a system called checkpoints to make it easy as hell. Alright, now stage 1 and stage 2. If you're struggling on either of these, you should just go watch my beginner's tutorial, but here's a rundown of the basics. When you ride on the right side of a ramp, hold A, and when on the left, hold D. Push yourself against the ramp, and never hold W. Moving your mouse towards the ramp now pushes you up, get some air, but don't do it too hard. And when you first get on the ramp, try to look at the bottom of it in front of you, then slowly pull up in a smooth curve. It should look something like this from the side. This is also called boarding, and most importantly, you never want to slam or flop onto a ramp. Always try to board cleanly. I'll give you some tips for that later. But also, while you're not on a ramp, you can turn in the air by holding A, for example, and turning to the left. Same with D, this is called air strafing. Key concept, just make sure you're only holding one key at once. Stage 3, however, gets a little harder. Alternating ramps on either side. You'll see this structure in many future maps, so it's a good thing to learn. Here we have to use air strafing to board each ramp properly. Once you're on the first ramp, still holding A, do a small flick, moving towards the ramp to get some height, no more than a quarter of the way up. Now switch to D and move your mouse to the right. At this point we're closer to the ramp, so just hold A and move left to line up, and hold D to board the ramp. Repeat this process one more time and you're done for now, because stage 4 has a very similar idea, this time stretched out. Once you get to the end of ramp 1, you're going to do a medium flick, strafe over to the right, and do a clean board and flick. Here's a breakdown. First, I recommend starting from the left holding D. It makes things a little easier, and once we get close, we can start our flick. You're going to have to gauge this yourself. Now keep holding D and move way over to the right, and then strafe back to the left with A to line up. You can really see this when most of the ramp is hidden. That means you're on track, and hold D once you're on. Now the hardest part done, just do another medium flick and turn left into the end zone. And on to stage 5, our first with obstacles. Windows, you get the idea, go through them. What you need to know is high versus low. If you hear someone say ride the ramp low, they mean close to falling off the bottom, as opposed to riding the top, which wouldn't be very useful here. So go low here, it makes it so much easier, especially for the last ramps, where you have to stay low and flick up at the end of the last segment. To ensure this, make sure you barely flick off the second ramp, falling to the last 2 and staying low again before your final flick. This brings us to stage 6. Okay, you gotta beat this one, super easy. Do a good board on ramp 1, use the speed to get over the first floor, and then turn in one direction, one clean movement. Just make it to the ramp below, hold the correct key, and you're set. This same structure will reappear on stage 9, so it's good to learn anyway. Another pretty easy stage that will appear on the final one, so you gotta know it. First, ride the ramp down towards the window. Before the window starts, do a medium flick about a third of the way up the ramp, and hold D and turn to the right. Try to line yourself up with the next one. Then simply board with the correct key and do a small flick if you don't have enough speed. Now here's where things get different. On every other board we've had something to aim for, like the edge or the top, and now you have to do a same side board. Turn until you're parallel with the ramp and then board as best you can on that side, pointing towards the bottom and forwards and slowly pulling up. Alternatively, you can flick hard to board at the other side if this is not working. Then if you have enough speed, just flick into the end. If you've gotten this far, you're at the final normal stage, not too difficult. Super easy to start, just get a good board on the first ramp and do a small flick to get to ramp 2. And ride down the ramp low, and once you get to the end, do a medium to high flick up. Now you have your first weave, that's what this is called. Start by holding A and turning left to dodge the first wall, and then only D and turning right for the next. Repeat this and try to keep your turn small, because it will reduce your distance traveled. Just make sure to get good speed from the early ramps and experiment with the flick. Now, before we get into stage 9, I'm going to give you a tool. But once you use it, your timer will end. You're going to have to start from stage 1 again. Trust me, it's worth it, and it will make you a better surfer. In Surf, we now have a checkpoint system. For example, here on Rookie, I can make a checkpoint with one button, and with another, teleport back to that checkpoint with my speed. And then I can practice that specific section over and over until I get it. We're going to use this on Surf Kitsune to crush stage 9. So your timer will stop and your run won't count, but trust, it's worth. Here are the binds you need. Just substitute key for the key, like Z and X, or mouse 1 and mouse 2 if you like, and put them in console. Here's the instruction on screen for that. And finally, stage 9. If you skipped everything, that's okay. I'll explain it all and let you know if a previous section will be useful, as many parts of this stage are nearly identical to previous ones. Starting off with the first weave. Like stage 8, you need to flick off and strafe between the walls. Hold A and do a medium flick, then continue turning until you've reached the first wall. Then use D to turn back and clear the first floor. This is a great place to make your first checkpoint for practice. Forget about doing the previous section. Now we have a spin, like stage 6. Do one continuous turn and aim to properly board the ramp below, preferably on the right side. Another good place for a checkpoint. And to give a sneak peek, this part is just like stage 7. Do a small flick off the ramp holding A and continue to turn until you're roughly in line with the ramp. And then board with D. Now this next part is easy. Just get on the next ramp and ride it until you can slowly flick into the window. Now we arrive at the first new part. Make a checkpoint and learn this section. Do a medium flick on this ramp and get some air over the floor. And do one long turn around the cylinder. Practice turning fast, slow, feel it, and don't hit your head. And after, do as good of a board as you can. Make a checkpoint. And here is the hardest part for most people. You need to flick, do a weave like before, and fall into the hole close to one side. My best advice is don't go too high, as we need some speed, but use your checkpoints to experiment and practice this. Once you're in the hole, do a turn to the opposite side to avoid the floor and get on the last ramp. One continuous turn. You've almost done it. Just do a transfer to the last ramp, a medium flick. If you have enough speed, flick off at the end of the last ramp. High if you want to be safe, but not too much. And you're done. The only other thing to cover is the boosted version of Kitsune. Some of you may be looking for help on that. The checkpoints we use today are perfect for this. Make them and plan out a route you can comfortably hit. So after editing, I thought of another tip. To be able to do this boost easily, just make a checkpoint once you get up here. That way, if you do it and you fail, you don't have to start at the normal spot. You can just hit that teleport button again and get right back into it. And if this helped you, please drop a like and consider subscribing for more CS2 surf content. Thank you so much for watching and good luck sliding those triangles.